For the rest of this weekend, all orders over $30 using my code Thorin, Thorin, at gamersubs.gg qualify for free shipping. Now, I've recently been enjoying the strawberry flavour. Now, listen, it's obviously a flavour. It's not like scurrying out to a little patch of strawberries and picking out some juicy, fresh red strawberries. Exactly what they taste like. But good news, as a result, doesn't have any of the sugar, does it? So if you do keto like I do, great for your diet. But speaking of picking out something juicy and red, how about a new Danish dream team featuring Non-Astralis players? Because we all know, aside from for Mr. Henry G, it's very difficult to get Astralis players. I mean, just look how much he actually had to pay Esatag to join Cloud9. So obviously, it goes without saying, Denmark is far and away still the best CS country. I mean, listen, France can certainly go head-to-head in terms of elite teams. Like, yeah, we've got Astralis and Heroic on the side of Denmark, but then we've got Vitality earlier in the year, G2. There was one point in time around the summer where they were right up there. But once you go beyond even the elite teams, Denmark just wins in a landslide. Like earlier this year, Mad Lions was super relevant. They have top talents that play for some of the best teams outside of Denmark. Now, the classic approach, because this sort of a video, I've done them myself in the past, and they've been requested many, many times. Usually, you do this approach that I'm taking now. In the past, it was TSM, and then Astralis, and now the modern day Astralis, and they nearly always had the best players. Like, it used to basically be a Danish dream team, for the most part, unless you were a Configure Magisk on the way up, or Karrigan, who just wasn't in their team anymore, because he'd already been in their team. And essentially, it was always, right, we know the Danish scene's stacked, we've always got this one top team, it's still the Astralis now, but with slightly different players. So the question then becomes, how do we get the other good players and make a team, and would it be as good? So in the past, you were talking about Yugi, if it was early 2017, or late 2016, or you were talking about Config in 2017 maybe, or late 2016 Magisk when he guy was a monster, or how about Karrigan himself way back in the day? Doesn't have to be the one where he's in TSM, obviously this could be any other year, 2017, 2018, whatever you want to do. But let's do one now for early 2021. Let's do it again. Let's see where the Danish scene is at. Now, the general approach when you make these teams, it's the same as when everyone asks you to make a dream team. You're either making, like, here's a team that just happens to be the best players I can pick out, or it's a team that would work in some way the best. Now, I've actually noticed when I pick my players out, I was able to combine the two, actually. I don't think you have to just go for the raw talents at the expense of the system. The great thing about the Danish scene, because they come through all those in-game leaders and they all play different roles and they play throughout proper Counter-Strike most of their careers, by the time they get to the top, they can actually fit into different positions. It's not like those Swedish teams where there's so many social components and then there's so much like nuanced aspects where people are going to almost telepathically have to play together. No, you can have structure here. So if you're going to go with the former approach, where you're just making like the best players, then it's a bit like, I forget who said this, it might even have been Skip Bayless, but there was someone said for their all-time starting five, maybe it was Shaq who did this, I think it might have been Shaq actually, what he did was, he made his all-time NBA starting five, so that as he went position by position, obviously since it's Shaq, you're like, where's he going to do for shooting guard, because he's going to have to pick Michael Jordan over Kobe, but then he did a trick, right, because what he did instead was, he just picked Kobe and Jordan, I'm pretty sure it was Shaq who did this, as the two wing players, and then the rest of the players were traditional players like Magic Johnson or whatever, and himself, etc. So you either go with that approach or you go in with just the best team you can make on paper. So essentially, your version of the 86 Celtics, if we're staying with basketball, so a lot of people consider like the greatest like starting lineup and best overall team ever. That approach, except it's not a real team in this case. I'm building the team out from the talent. So first and foremost, let's just assess what's on the table here. Like, who is out there? And I'm not going to pick everyone. Like, listen, no offense to people like Snappy, but you ain't on the table for something like this to be what? I'm going to pick you first out of everyone except Clave to be my IGL. No, I'm just not doing that at the beginning of 2021, am I? So we'll look at who's out there realistically, who I have to at least consider in the conversation. Well, for in-game leaders, obviously you start with Karrigan, who's in Mouse Sports, was in FaZe, and was himself in Astralis. He's a clear-cut candidate, isn't he? Fantastic. Tenure, one of the most accomplished IGLs of all time, from Denmark especially, the best out of all that are on offer at the moment. Not the best fragger, but he's the IGL. You've got MSL, ex-North, no one really knows where he's going right now. Long tenure, but hasn't quite hit the highest peaks, even though he has won some very big tournaments. But in terms of being consistently an elite level IGL who wins a lot of championships, but then again, except for Clave and Karrigan, those don't really exist. BlameF is the other one you have to throw in there for complexity, because he's just been so good individually, and he's come up so strong in the last year and a half, that he just forced himself in this conversation. But beyond that, think of the other teams out there. In complexity, along with BlameF, you've got Config, very skilled mechanical player. In Heroic, team that was at one point in time #1 in the world. You've got Stown, you've got Tesses, really strong individual players. Stown a little bit more blooded than Tesses, who really only came up this year and online. You have OG, have Valde, obviously, at one point in time, the #1 player, who if you did a video like this, anytime in the last 2.5 years, pretty much he had to be on the list. He was just such a clear-cut candidate. I actually thought by now, if Astralis changed players, yes, obviously Config and Magisk from the past were the obvious names to pick up, but I thought he's right next in line. It's one of the reasons I actually think it sucks that they went and got Yugi and Snappy, even though Snappy one was temporary, and even getting players like Bobski, like that isn't on the level of what Valde was in North in like 2017, 2018, when we consider the level that Astralis players are supposed to be at. That's one of the reasons it was obvious to me they weren't doing a real 6, 7, 10-man rotation, whatever nonsense they said to push the stock price up and to convince the naive. Then, if you go over to a team like Godsent that came up, Tesses' partner in crime from over in Copenhagen Flames, Farlig was over there as an AWPer, certainly shown himself the last few months to be pretty good. I have my questions about him against the Elite tier, but then again, he's still young in his career. In Cloud9, the aforementioned Esatag is getting paid monster salary. He showed some skills in Astralis earlier this year, obviously winning ESL Pro League. Beyond that, obviously not a monster guy in terms of numbers, but certainly seems like he has a very good attitude and good team player mindset. In Mad Lions, they obviously have a whole bunch of players that are quality players. Like you have Acor, who looked like he was ready to become one of the world's elite AWPers, hasn't quite made the jump yet. You have Refresh, who came in recently, who's actually shown himself to be pretty solid, actually. Shush has been pretty underrated, except for the 2 flashpoints where he really popped off. Roy, listen, he's not in terms of skills someone you put on a dream team, but playing the entry role, he's done a very serviceable job, quite frankly. So if we're making a team, my main team, I'm going to make this my main team. If you want to skip to the rest of it, this is the main lineup I would make. And actually, what's great is, it's simultaneously, I'm picking basically among the best players for the roles, but I'm also, thankfully, when I looked at it, I can make this lineup work as well. I think this could be a real team that could be very, very good. So I'm going to start with the in-game leader, because that in itself is a sexy choice, right? Where am I going on this one? Now, true, if you know my content, it's pretty obvious I am going with Karrigan. Like, outside of Glaive, and quite frankly, even considering Glaive, he's among the best to ever play the game from any country. So, bear in mind, Glaive did all this amazing shit in Astralis, but only with the Astralis core. Of course I have to pick Karrigan. Like, if I'm going any country in the entire world, Karrigan's still going to be in the conversation. As in, all the players in the world are available. Like, this is a guy where he's amazing at using quality pieces, star players to them strengths. He's good at even finding out how to move around a star player to make him even better. So I think with some of the pieces I'm going to put around him, he's not only going to make a really strong team. This isn't going to be a Danish phase. He's going to go more towards the TSM of 2015. It's going to be a hybrid. It's going to have tactical elements. It's going to have like anti-strats. It's going to have mid-round calling. It's going to have a little bit of free-for-all play for the stars that he just turns loose. So along with Karrigan, this is where I've gotten tricky. I didn't go, listen, the other angle was go MSL for me. But even then, listen, MSL's had his issues. I think Karrigan's quite frankly better. And he's just a lot easier to work with. He works with his players better in terms of Karrigan. So I'm actually then going to also take BlameF. That's right. I know all you fans want me to take a BlameF because he's been tearing it up online. And he's looked really good in call. But the problem is he hasn't played enough lands. And when he was in Heroic, that wasn't a really top team. It wasn't like the current Heroic top lineup. It was nowhere near the top. It was basically an upset team, and he himself still used to hard carry the matches, basically. So my problem is, I actually can't 100% trust him to be the best IGL. I don't think he's a better IGL than Karrigan at this point in his career, or even right now in the game. And I also have my issues, because he's so good individually. I have my issues when I see so many of his players underperforming. Like, what, you're fragging out of control as the IGL. Remember, you're not the traditional Nico. Like, that's not a real thing. You're fragging out of control, doing amazing. But then Config's doing great, and maybe earlier in the year, Obo was doing good, and Rush does good for his role, but Poison has been hung out to dry most of the year. JKS has had his issues when he's come in. It's only really Config, and that's the last, 4 or 5 months he's been really... I don't know, that's why I have my issues, because being an IGL is more than just calling the strats, or even more than just doing your job from the IGL role. There's a lot more to it, so I feel like BlameF isn't quite there. So what's great is, I'm going to take BlameF, but I'm going to take him to be a fragger. I'm going to keep him as a lurker as he currently plays, because he plays one of the weirdest styles ever. Him and Huxley from Mad Lions have such a bizarre concept of being an IGL, but I'll take him, and I'll make him the lurker still, and the secondary caller, because my other problem with him being the lurker is, I don't think as the lurker, you can make as great calls as you can if you're part of the entry pack, or maybe the guy watching the flank of the entry pack or something. I think you kind of have to have eyes on the ground to really get that done properly on execution in terms of executes. So when I look at him, I want him as my secondary caller. Doesn't have to call much, just call from his position, probably similar to what he's doing now. And then Lurk, frag out. He's not going to frag as well, quite frankly, because if you've noticed those sorts of players who tend to be star players who become agile, they nearly always tend to be semi-Lurk players who've been secondary callers, and then maybe they frag out still like BlameF does, but they're not as good in terms of the team when they're in that role. So I think this could actually make him a more contributing player, and even better, maybe he could even be the best player in the team, and he wouldn't have to be the IGL. So I think considering what a beast he's been individually and what a great work ethic he's got, I also think someone like Karrigan would make amazing use of this guy. And imagine the two of them combined if they could get on the same page mentally. So I've already got a totally different route, but I think I'm already getting a pretty OP lineup, because now listen to my other three players. So now I'm going to go with my anchor player, and I'm rounding out my supportive elements, although let's be real, BlameF ain't going to be supportive, he's going to be fragging. And when we have these players, guess what? This player's fragging as well, because my anchor player is going to be Valde. This guy, I actually think, let me think how to say this without sounding blasphemous. I actually think he's like Zipnix with even better aim. Now, not quite, because I'll give it to Zipnix. There are very few players. We probably have to talk about like Get Right, Classic Get Right, Shocks, Colds. There are very few players that had the mind for X on X like Zipnix does. But Valde has good skills in that sense. He has good skills in terms of playing those anchor roles, like the really difficult spots you've got to hold on your own, or it's a spot where normally you're one and done, or you just get traded on. It's really difficult to like carry the game from there. He can do those things, but he can carry the game. Zipnix does it once in a while, and sure, Zipnix is often playing against higher level competition. Depends, Valde's OG's pretty good nowadays, but yeah, earlier on they weren't always in the finals and stuff. So I'm not going to say he's on that level, but I think that's his ceiling. Like, I think Valde, for real, could be one of the greatest players to ever play Counter-Strike, if he sticks with it. Now, I will say, that was mainly the last few months he was super good. It wasn't always an OG, and OG had their own issues, but these last few months, and particularly at Flashpoint 2, he was unbelievable. So I don't even need him to be my star player. I don't even need him to put many frags. I just need him to do his job, and at the moment, he's more than doing his job. This is going to make the core of my team super strong, and he's got great communication skills and doesn't have a big ego. It's one less ego despite his skills that would, by the way, warrant having a big ego. So now you look at already, I've already got a banging lineup, so wait for my 2 stars here, boys, because I ain't going with the obvious routes now of like the young up and comers. I'm going with 2 people, one established and one who I think hasn't made it yet but will in the lineup. So my established guy is going to be Config. He's going to be my entry, obviously going along with Karrigan in this sense, because Karrigan often likes to play entry with his other stars, just the role that he usually do in Danish Counter-Strike. The guy has monster mechanical skill. If we really put this team together properly and his head's in the right place, he could be the best player in the world. That's the level of skill we're talking about. I've also always wanted to see him paired with Karrigan. Karrigan's the guy who brings the most out of star players, loves playing like an aggressive entry style with quick like switch ups in terms of mid-round calls. Imagine him having a player like Config. Imagine what those two would do on T side of Mirage. Oh, guys, they'd tear it up. It'd be unbelievable. So of course I want Config. And then my last player, you notice I haven't really got a proper AWP yet. I need another, but I'm going to take Acor. And the reason why is this. The potential for Acor is amazing. What an amazing, well-rounded skill set he has. But there's something missing psychologically. He hasn't got the killer instinct of a star player yet. He hasn't decided to truly... He started to. That's why he started to change the way he describes himself in his interviews. But you can tell he hasn't fully downloaded the mentality. He was just more one of the pack and just like, I'm just doing my job. Being a star player is sometimes about saying, pause that. I'm not just going to do my job. I'm just going to take this whole game over. And that's what he doesn't really do yet. But I tell you what, give him Karrigan as his IGL. And I think Karrigan would bring the best out of him. In fact, Karrigan would bring the beast out of him. Remember, Karrigan's played with people like Woxic, Guardian, Device, Cajun B back in 2015, as far as AWPers go. These were some of the most dynamic, effective AWPers in the world, especially on certain maps. Also, Karrigan himself was a star player on the AWP 1.6 and has played even in CSGO, even back in many of the different teams he's been in. So I think you look at this guy, if anyone could whip him in a shape, it's surely Karrigan. And in a lineup like this, I think Karrigan would actually encourage some of those aspects that would build up the tendencies to want to be a star player and really carry. So I think my lineup's fucking sick. I've got a super sick lineup. And the best part is, I picked among the best players for each of the roles, but I also got an amazing team. Like, I think our team fits together super well. It has everything almost. It has like leadership, it has fragging from almost all the roles, it has AWPing. I have all the roles covered as well, and in a way that looks comfy. I think I've got a nice balance of like egos, but even then, I've only really got people like Config who were really going too crazy. The others though, BlameF's a very confident guy in his own way. I know that Karrigan's a confident guy in his own way. I think the nice mixture is what would make this work so well. Sure, we lack a little bit of experience on the side of BlameF at big lands or Acor at big lands. Sure, that's the case. You've got to admit that. You haven't necessarily played with these players in teams before. That's an issue. The BlameF switch is a little bit questionable. Beyond that, what I would probably do otherwise, there's one other approach I'd maybe take, which is this, is I would have had the same team, but make it a little bit more tactics heavy, a little bit more traditional CS, which would mean MSL instead of Karrigan. And then in a world where, because I don't think he's a real Astralis player, I think they just keep him on the bench, they're going to sell him eventually. Let's say I can buy Bobski. Let's say it has to be the original 5 Astralis starters, but I can take Bobski. If I can take Bobski, how about this? MSL as the leader, Bobski is the lurker, so take out Karrigan and BlameF, and I'll just have that team. Now listen, it's going to be a little bit more raw of a team, and MSL is going to have to really be one of the best IGLs ever if he's going to make this lineup work. But I'd love to test him with it because it's great players in all positions, knowing the problems of North not giving you the players and them going to Heroic or OG or Call or everywhere else but your team. No, you got the players now, so let's see what you can do. This will be kind of be MSL's last chance saloon to be a truly great IGL. I think that lineup's even a pretty good lineup as well. I'd love to see what he'd do with someone like Acor, because the problem with MSL was he had good Cajun B, he had bad Nico, the one with a C, and beyond that, he hasn't really had a very good AWPer. I mean, Cajun B wasn't at that point in time. He hasn't had an elite AWPer during his tenure. That's why he tried to do it himself. So I'd love to see you give him someone with the skills and then see what he can do with his tactics. Now, if you want to go extreme, I've got 2 other lineups we can do, and these don't have to be too long. One is, let's say I go full Danish. And listen, as everyone knows from watching Anders, you never go full Danish. But let's say I go full Danish. So I'm going pure tactics and team play. I'm going as hard into, like, this team can execute everything. Here's the lineup that you go for. This one's going to shock you. You go with MSL as the IGL. It's always been his strength. Now, I will say, varying up his playbook might be an issue. But in terms of the individual tactic, he'll always have very, very slick, smooth tactics that work. Here's my IGL. Roy is going to be my main entry because that guy is just a workman. He's one of those guys where a mixture of age, temperament, base level skills, not very high, but good enough to get the job done. He just does his job. Like, he's a guy who plays entry the way I like it. Where when you play entry, you're not supposed to be afraid to die. You're not supposed to matter that you died. You just try to do your part of the job, make the job easier for the people behind you that they create the space for and create map pressure for, and then make it so your IGL has then done the first steps of the game and then he can think about the next part. Like, Roy does his job very well. So if we're talking pure, we don't need all the skill in the world. We need just enough skill to execute what we're doing. So we've got MSL as my IGL, Roy is my entry. My other entry is going to be Config, because he's running in there with Roy, and he knows he has to carry, but he's back with his boy MSL. I think this is a very interesting dynamic, because Config in 2021 is not the same Config that was in Optic. It's not the same Config that ages ago was in North. So let's see what the 2021's like when we got this set up, because between MSL and Roy, we've got a very interesting dynamic of 3 players who, joining with Karrigan, these 2 can really make the entry. They can mix up who goes entry, where, what side of the map. This could be really cool. Then I'll take Acor and Valde, the same players, as my AWPer and my anchor, because look at the level of talent I've just given MSL there. Like, I always felt like he only really had a couple of lineups that were really good. There was late 2016 North, and then there was the North when he got Valde into the lineup. Those are the only ones, and even then, they never had the truly strong AWPer like Acor. And Valde wasn't the player he was back then. And Config had kind of lost the plot at certain points in time. He never had a player like Roy. So I think this is a very interesting... This is basically what North should have tried to make, because this isn't even like a break-the-back type lineup if you do it 6 months ago, a year ago. Then the last one that we would make is this. Since we all look at Danish Counter-Strike, and we just say... tactics or anti-stratting, wow, role, structure. How about we say fuck it? We just say, let's make the most skilled lineup we can make, man for man, and let's just play way less tactics and team play. Let's just frag out. Here's the lineup I make tomorrow if you want to do that. IGL BlameF, don't give a fuck what he's doing with the team. Just frag out, my bro. You're doing it. You're watching all the demos, you're fragging. You're doing a great job individually in terms of being a fragging IGL. Valde's going to be in there again. He frags way above your expectation, what production you would expect from the roles he plays and spots he plays. Then I'm going to take Tesses, the heroic star. There's a guy in Copenhagen Wolves. I watched this, and this is where one of those videos where one of those moments where I realised how busted everyone's eye test is. In the same way as I look now when I watch Broland play, and just looking at the crosshair, I'm like, this guy is unreal. I'll go and I look at a Tesses game back in Copenhagen Wolves. I was like, how has everyone not seen this guy's obviously mad skilled? Like, why is he not getting the offers to the North, the Heroics of the world? And eventually, he obviously got one. Then I'm getting Config, because, I mean, let's face it, he's probably the most mechanically skilled Danish player. And then my last player, I'll take Acor again, because another thing people underrate about Acor is his flicking speed and his raw hand-eye coordination is very good. He might actually be better than Device on some of those, like, extreme elements of mechanics with the AWP. Device is really smooth and has a lot of skill, But I think on some of those raw AWPing elements, I think Acor even slightly trumps him. He just doesn't do it on land against the top team, so it doesn't count as much. The skill I've put in this team is really strong. I know some people might want like Stown in there or something. My problem is I'm not quite sure what role to give him, because I do think he's really good, and I think he's gotten very good this last year, 2020. I actually think it was a bit overrated the year before. But the problem is, it's not in a top LAN team, and he still hasn't had the full experience. So my problem is, it's a bit hard. I can give Acor that position, because I haven't got anyone except Devices and AWP. I can't take Devices, he's in Astralis. So the problem with someone like Astown or some of those other players is, they're not quite proven enough for me. Whereas this lineup here, I know Tessus is very unproven, but he's just a guy I just throw in there and tell you, just shoot him in the head, mate. That's all I need from you. Stown, to me, looks like he's trying to become more in the vein of a Rops, a Leash type, a little bit more cerebral, and he's trying to figure the game out himself, but seems a little bit more hesitant. That's why I see him having like another year to really get to the top. But yeah, look for him in end of 2021, 2022. That's when he looks like he'll really be hitting the top level that you can expect from him. This video was kindly supported by Lagger15, Pronogo, Andrew, Dean Tanglis, Animosity, ErikHillestad, Andreas Kroknes, Hades, Jensen Goh, Zoomba, JDubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Want to ask a question in one of my monthly video AMAs? Do you want teasers? See who's going to be on my next interviews and shows? Maybe you want to take part in a discussion with me where we go anywhere. We had a mad one talking about chess the other month. If so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Skruilluminati today at the link in the description box below.